What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. Today is a very difficult day to film, and it's my displeasure to report that Chris Barber and Tamara Lich have been found guilty of causing mischief. Their trial comes to a close today in Ottawa. Complete miscarriage of justice, and one that I am so sad to report on, as two of my very dear friends now hang in the balance on a judge's whim to decide their fate. They have broken until 2 p.m. Eastern this afternoon, so I figured I'd put out this video to give you guys all the details, and then again, join me tomorrow. I will have a video tomorrow discussing what sentencing or charges are brought forward following this devastating news that's come forward. I want to cover really quick Ezra Levant. Ezra's been covering the trial, and again, Eva Chipiak, many others were covering the trial inside. I'm going to take you through the entire thread so you understand what went on in the courtroom, what was said, leading up to this complete overhaul of our political justice system, because Ezra makes some very, very good points here. I would expect that when this is done, especially people like Pierre Poilievre running for prime minister, I would love to hear their stance on what's happened, since they've included the truckers in their speeches, as to how they believe that our current justice system is now politically driven rather than driven by the law. Favoritism is shown to other individuals, but if you dare protest the government, well, that's a whole nother ballgame. Let's get through it. Ezra Tiding, I'm in Ottawa for Judgment Day in the case of R versus Tamara Lich, the longest running mischief trial in Canadian history. Tamara was the spiritual leader of the trucker convoy in 2022, and the regime has been tormenting her ever since, including 49 days in prison. Last week, a lawyer estimated that the police and prosecution have spent 10 million tax dollars in their vengeance litigation against her. Here he is with the follow me for more tweets. Help with the monstrous legal bills required to defend the lawfare. Go to helptamara.com. I usually don't advocate for crowdfunding, but in this case, please go and help Tamara. Go to this site. They're going to need the help. This is absurd. I don't know what else to say. The judge is Justice Heather E. Perkins McVeigh. She's a fairly senior judge, and it is my observation, has been quite attentive throughout the marathon trial. My one criticism is that she allowed the prosecution to abuse the court's time by bringing in countless irrelevant witnesses. From her point of view, allowing the government to get away with its abuses likely reduce the possibility of a successful appeal if and when Tamara is acquitted. He goes down here then 3 hours ago at the time of filming this video, the courtroom was packed, 6 lawyers, huge contingent of journalists, especially from the mainstream prostitute media, and lots of Tamara Lich's supporters. In fact, I almost flew down to Ottawa today to be there to support Tamara. With our move, with everything that's been going on, it was just too much, too quick. I wasn't able to. I almost wish I was there at this point. It says there's another matter that they just dealt with in a different case. That's over now. Perkins McVeigh said that she wants to see all lawyers in her chambers. Correction. There are now more than 6 lawyers. I forgot to count the lawyers for Chris Barber, Tamara Lich's co-accused. I'll try to count again, and I think I may have undercounted the prosecution's lawyers too. There may be 10 lawyers here, and a judge and clerks and a ton of cops. Which goes to my point, the regime has decided to spare no expense in their vendetta against Tamara Lich. 3 hours again to the time of filming this video, the judge is back with the lawyers. The judge says there are 3 people who want to join the proceedings by video link or Zoom, including 1 family member and 1 member of the legal team who just had a baby. Those requests were granted. The judge warns the cell phones have to be turned off or they'll be seized if they ring. The judge also says t-shirts that show support for Tamara Lich, and those shirts are to be turned inside out. I haven't seen those, but I've seen some pro-trucker merch. The judge says she's going to go through the case and she doesn't want emotional outbursts from the gallery. The judge says the ruling is 105 pages long. She says she'll read an abbreviated version of the ruling. She asks in jest who wants to hear the long version, and one hand in the gallery goes up. She says she'll release the complete version later. Again, if that becomes public, we'll show that on the channel. Or at least the Cliff Notes version. In brackets, there really is no need to read 105 pages today. This can be studied later by lawyers, etc. The judge takes a 15-minute recess in which they set up the Zoom call. Then the court is resumed. Several lawyers joining by Zoom call. It's 10:40 a.m. Ottawa time, and we're only really starting now. Justice moves slowly as always. Then the judge says the Carter application is dismissed. So this is a good thing. The Carter application was brought in to try and give Tamara Lich up to 10 years in prison as a co-conspirator to Chris Barber. So the good news was the Carter application was dismissed. That's a rule where one defendant's words can be used against another defendant. It says the judge is now giving a historical background on the trucker convoys. The judge is emphasizing that there were a multitude of convoys in the movement, and they were related to a protest against COOF restrictions. Tamara Lich and Chris Barber formed a corporation for that project, as discussed. Then the judge says that the Crown conceded that Lich and Barber came to Ottawa with the best of intentions. The Crown acknowledged that the politics and free speech are not on trial, but that the defendants crossed the line. Judge then, prosecutors concede political demonstrations are valid. Ezra putting FYI in Canada, the Crown in criminal court is synonymous with prosecutors. Judge states the Crown says the accused transformed their conduct into a criminal act and violated the rights of others. Judge also says defense say that they were always peaceful and encouraged others to be peaceful, which we've seen the evidence of that. The judge says this was a grassroots movement. Also that some people and their vehicles were part of the convoy. Some were curious onlookers. Some were in Ottawa to protest, but were unaffiliated. The judge also points out here that trucks came from across Canada. Police directed trucks where to park. This is very important. The police were intimately involved with the decisions of the truckers of where the trucks could go. Judge also states witnesses said that this disrupted transportation, that the noise from horn honking made it difficult to sleep and work. Again, this is where the Carter application came in, where they were saying that Chris Barber had allegedly put out a video stating that keep the horns going, even though that wasn't the case. It was totally misrepresented. This was where they tried to charge Tamara. Residents testified that people suffered significant interference with their lives. Judge also states there's no question that this was the state of things for a 3-week period. Truckers said they would not leave until the mandates were terminated. That's not the case. I feel that that's misrepresented. The truckers just wanted someone to talk to them. They didn't say they would stay until the mandates were lifted. They wanted to be heard. They wanted someone to talk to them. Keep in mind, hardly any political MPs, at least leaders, came out and spoke to the truckers. I know Pierre was on some overpasses, and Pierre said that he was supporting willfully, legally protesting people, but that was about the hindsight of it. And people are going to point out Maxime Bernier and everything. Max doesn't have a seat. I'm not counting him in this. The judge says here, police kept one lane open on most streets for emergency vehicles. This is another important fact that the regime media and politicians have lied about. The judge also says that the city of Ottawa, Ontario declared a state of emergency, and finally Trudeau invoked martial law. How embarrassing that some horn honking made the country's establishment crumble. The accused were arrested February 17th and thus had no involvement in the convoy after that. The judge completes her overview of the background and historical facts. So that took an hour. The judge then lists the charges or the counts against the two accused. The judge is now listing the various witnesses who testified, various police officers and government officials. Various individual citizens were also witnesses. I should say none of them witnesses Tamara Lich doing anything. That's what's so gross about this criminal trial. Tamara Lich was the accused, but there was no evidence she did anything. None of the witnesses saw or interacted with her in any way. It was a political struggle session. It was an act of psychological therapy. It was a forum for anti-protester cranks. But it was not really a trial of Tamara Lich. I agree with that statement. Inspector Russell Lucas was an important witness, says the judge, but then she immediately says that he had no interactions with Lich at all. And Ezra says, see, that's what the problem is here. They put the convoy on trial, not Tamara Lich. They had no evidence against her, just their own hate. That's the statement of the century. This is a witch hunt. How can you have a trial of Tamara Lich with nearly 50 days of the court sitting, but not a single witness saw or heard Tamara Lich do anything, and so they just testified about their feelings? Ezra then tweets out, Inspector Lucas admitted that people had started coming in from all places, and it wasn't particularly organized, and police had no clue what to do with hundreds of trucks coming in. Lucas said the truckers were cooperative with police. We want to balance the right to free speech, but mitigate the impact. Inspector Lucas also said approved and endorsed putting the trucks on Wellington Street. It was his idea. Wellington Street was primarily government offices. This decreased the impact on residents. Inspector Lucas testified that if he had to do it again, he would again direct the trucks to Wellington Street. FYI, Wellington is the big street right in front of Parliament Hill. It's Parliament on one side, the other government offices are on the other side. Inspector Lucas says there was no physical violence. Again, this is all important when we get to the actual sentencing. Judge moves on. Sergeant Pilat was in charge of viewing the truckers' Facebook pages. The Crown admitted that much of that was hearsay and unreliable in other ways. Judge refers to a cop from the Sûreté de Quebec, the province of police, provincial police. So this was a massive police operation. Ottawa Police, Ontario Provincial Police, and the Quebec Police. Of course, the RCMP and Canadian Armed Forces too. They were deployed as a drone to spy on truckers. Handling the protest was under the Ottawa Police management. It says down here, oh my God, she's talking about Kim Ayotte now. He was a City of Ottawa emergency response bureaucrat. He testified for hours on one of the days I was at trial. What a loser he is. He could go for walks around the city and make observations, but he didn't keep any notes. He didn't video anything. He just said kind of Dear Diary rambles in court. I was so embarrassed for him. It was like I was watching some loser emoting on a TV talk show. These are all, I'll skip past Ezra's personal, unless again it's relevant. The judge says Mr. Ayotte admitted the truckers were living up to their end of the bargain in terms of moving when asked. The judge rehearses that some of the therapy sessions of different people witnessing the trucks, Dear Diary, nothing connected to Tamara Lich, just whiny bureaucrats who were mad that some people were fed up with lockdowns. Judge says, I'm not going to review all civilian witnesses. She does name them, though. These are just random Ottawa citizens who, for some bizarre reason, were invited to participate in a criminal trial of a person they never met or had any dealings with. Again, a trial about feelings. The judge talks about PLTs, police liaison teams. These were the go-to between the truckers. They negotiated things like moving a truck from here to there. The judge refers to the PLT testimony, but notes they didn't have any dealings with Tamara Lich. One PLT cop says he saw tents serving hot food and drinks to anybody he observed some passengers' cars. He admitted it was an indigenous group. One PLT cop testified they were able to work with Chris Barber to move trucks out of residential areas and onto Wellington Street instead. PLT testimony, Mr. Barber texted that he had trucks ready to move, but a police cruiser was blocking them. Again, why is this mischief? It sounds to me like they were working together. Says the judge reviews evidence indicating the truckers were in different capacities. A lot of different groups, but also some individuals or multiple convoys. That's relevant, of course, if you're trying to hang anyone and everyone's conduct to one woman or as a scapegoat. So the judge then reviews evidence that Chris Barber was trying to help manage particular truckers and protesters. In concert with authorities, judge reviews evidence Chris Barber wanted to help police maintain the peaceful nature of the protests. They also review that Barber was acting as a go-between authorities and the truckers. Evidence of Barber asking police to recommend commercial streets for the truckers to go to as opposed to residential streets. Judge quotes Barber telling a cop he likes to stir the shit. This is where things take a turn. The judge is reciting some of the conversation between the police and city as the one hand and the truckers with the other. There was a bargain on how things would go, but political decision by the government broke, and police apparently apologized to Barber. The judge indicates that the streets remain blocked after the defendants were arrested. Judge notes that dancing in the street, hockey games, particular police witnesses said their mission was lawful, peaceful, safe demonstration with minimal disruption to citizens. I agree. It was mostly on Wellington. Cops said Barber didn't control everybody, again, relevant to whether or not the government had any sort of collective punishment for anything anyone did. The judge says Mr. Barber and Miss Lich are not on trial for their politics. It's the alleged means that are on trial. The judge then says that the Crown says it's a large body of evidence and characterizes Barber and Leach's words as criminally culpable, as individuals and members of a joint criminal enterprise. Judge says the Crown says means are used to used by the convoy were ongoing mischief, or while Lich and Barber were principal organizers and leadership documented on social media. The judge then also says that the defense says accused engaged in lawful, constitutionally protected peaceful protest. Accused were just one group amongst many, and Ottawa couldn't control the actions of all persons. Lich and Barber said they counseled people to have a peaceful protest as to inconvenience to residents or businesses. That's on the police for bad planning. Judge is now talking about what is lawful, peaceful protest and several competing interests. The judge says Charter of Rights is not absolute. That's key in this. The judge refers to the case of the pro-Hamas encampment at the University of Toronto. She cites the U of T case as the law is clear. The protests do not have the right to camp on property. It's chaos. Judge cites the Occupy Toronto case with Antifa camped in public parks. Judge quoting Toronto case, Charter does not remove common sense on how balance competing rights. Judge quoting a case of protester who blocked a road for an hour and had to be taken away by a cop found guilty of mischief. Judges reviewing several other protest cases. Judge quoting cases giving participants broad latitude to protest in a democracy. Quotes Inspector Lucas testifying with the general practice is to try and find a balance between protesters and the impact of the community. Judge states that one cop said the protest was peaceful, lawful, and safe. Refers to the court injunction against the honking horns, says that the case was only horn honking and not other issues. Down here is where it gets important. The judge said that neither Chris Barber nor Tamara Lich testified, but that cannot be held against them. The judge says, I now turn to the mischief charge. This is the key one. Section 430. Mischief is conduct that interferes with lawful use and enjoyment of property. The judge describing more details, example defining terms like willfully, and enjoyment of property, etc. She's really explaining what a mischief charge means. Again, that's leading up to her being able to convict. Conduct means to be wrongful. Must be wrongful to be the offense, and says that it can't be disagreeable to others. There must be a physical act greater than the accused mere presence. Example, a picket is not a mischief. Quotes a Newfoundland case. There must be some physical act on the part of the accused that causes an obstruction, interruption, or interference with property in question that gives beyond a mere communication of information through picketing. Judge quotes the R versus Arthur Pulowski case of his mischief conviction for giving a sermon near the Coots blockade. That's another case that TDF Can, or the Democracy Fund, helped defend. They refer to a blocking and lodging roads case in BC. Refers to a bunch of other things. The judge is describing the harms caused to residents of Ottawa by the convoy and other mischief cases, a case that led to a conviction. The judge is reading another mischief conviction of a trucker convoy protester. The accused was yelling, "Hold the line," which the judge took as a confession of mischief. Boy, do you ever pay the price for not having a First Amendment in Canada. The judge now cites an appellate ruling overturning a not guilty finding by a lower court regarding Ottawa convoy protesters. Then says the judge lists other cases she's considered, including a case where strength in numbers could transform modest participation into encouragement. Lich and Barber were admitted leaders in the convoy movement. Both were part of the Freedom Convoy Corporation as directors. There's no evidence that Miss Lich had a vehicle or that she blocked a building. She set up the Facebook page. She was involved in the setting up of the GoFundMe and later the Give Send Go page. The judge says Mr. Barber brought his truck to Ottawa and parked it for 11 days. No evidence that he blocked anything. There's no question that the evidence shows that the truckers created a mass mischief. Judge refers to horn honking, blocked roads, and the smell of diesel. Judge then talks about the civil witnesses in her testimony. None of these witnesses had any direct contact with the accused. The judge says, I accept the evidence that supports that there were more than one group of truckers. I accept that Mr. Barber was unable to direct all the truckers. Then the judge goes on to say there's an overwhelming evidence that Lich and Barber were leaders of a substantial group of the truckers. I accept the testimony that the Freedom Convoy was the broad, moderate group. Judge also says that I accept the Ottawa police were completely overwhelmed. Defense says that Ottawa police directed the truckers en masse and actually gave them maps of where to go. Judge also states the operational plan handed out by truckers of the city was an attempt to find a happy medium. Barber said in several texts, we are completely messing this city up. We effed this town up. We train wrecked it. Barber says we train wrecked it, not the other group. I accept that Lich and Barber came with the noblest of intentions. I also accept that a number of factors came together to lead that initial gridlock, and a number of directions to truckers were not followed. This is, again, where it's very important to watch your words. It's important to watch what you say, because this, of course, with that one video by Barber, is what's obviously turning this around. Ezra saying, as I sat through a number of trucker mischief hearings, including the Coots blockaders, I sense by the judge's discussion she will convict Barber. Whether she convicts Lich is not yet discernible to me. But of course, that was flipped over. Judge notes that time came when the Freedom Convoy was no longer welcomed by the police. It was at that date that Mr. Barber starts to talk about moving the trucks to alleviate impact on residents, and that's ample evidence to support us of the date they agree to move the trucks. Judge refers to social media clips showing Barber talking about playing stick hockey. Judge, in this video, he is counseling people to come down to the blocked street. Judge also acknowledges a February 9th TikTok by Chris Barber. If you see a large amount of police coming to your truck, lock your door and let the effing horn go until they're busting your windows down. Do that, guys. When we see the mass force police coming at you, be strong. We got this. Another Barber comment, for every truck that signs to get out of custody, we'll replace them with 3 more new truckers. Everybody and their effing dog come to Ottawa. Again, this is where words are being used to merely push the idea of mischief. The above statements are clear encouragement to block the streets. Judge cites that Barber's TikTok, do you think we're leaving? The words really don't do justice. You need to see the sarcastic tone. You need to watch it, and I did. Judge says truckers were treating Barber like a celebrity or a rock star. Barber was not a mere bystander in the protest. He was very present with a positive act. Miss Lich was primarily a spokesperson. Many said she was the face of the movement. She also worked with the funds. Judge discusses slow roll protest. Judge cites Barber comments, really good train wreck traffic. Judge says this showed interference. The judge then reads more transcripts of Barber videos laughing about an empty, lonely intersection to get the followers to block the road. Pretty clear to me Barber's going to be convicted. Judge now talks about Tamara Lich's comments and conduct, says, check out this street. I'm not sure that's enough. So please, again, as we're saying, to donate. Judge refers to Tamara Lich welcoming Brian Peckford, former Newfoundland Premier, who came to support the truckers. Now Ezra starts to say again that he has a bad feeling Lich is going to be convicted. Judge emphasizes Tamara Lich saying, hold the line. The prosecution has claimed that's an illegal statement and it's inciting mischief. Judge now reading one of Lich's Facebook posts that is all about peace, love, and prayers. Please try not to be angry. Keep love in your hearts. Keep fighting the good fight, and we're going to hold the line. Tamara was arrested the next day. Judge, hold the line can mean different things, but without a doubt, it was a rallying cry to remain on the streets. Ezra then chimes in Canada, you can say from the river to the sea, and to eradicate every Jew in Israel. You can also call for Antifada revolution, and the police will smile, but say hold the line at a peaceful trucker protest, you'll be jailed. Judge notes Tamara Lich calls for the truckers to obey the police directions to de-escalate in some neighborhoods, says it was proof that she knew they were breaking the law, and hold the line meant to delay or defy the law, sorry. This is where it completely turns around. Judge says there's an absence of information about her honest belief about their conduct. The Crown has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Lich and Barber have committed mischief. And that's when Ezra again posts Tamara Lich and Chris Barber found guilty of mischief for leading the peaceful trucker protest. Now, again, the judge broke for 2 hours. I know that was a long thread, guys. I wanted to make sure the context was there. I wanted to show you how this went down today. This is a complete miscarriage of justice. Again, Tamara Lich was nothing more than a spokesperson. She was there as the face of the convoy. She didn't drive any of the trucks onto Wellington. She didn't encourage anybody to do anything illegal. You'll remember her tearful videos where she was saying she feels bad that people are attacking Justin Trudeau's children, that he's a father, that they're just there to get a point across. At the end of the day, folks, all the truck drivers wanted was to be heard. Their government ignored them and then turned their country against them, shattering their windows, freezing bank accounts, throwing people in jail. I'll remind you, out of Tamara's days in jail, she spent about 2 weeks in solitary confinement over a mischief charge. It's very concerning to me what these two will be sentenced with. And again, once that sentence comes forward, join me tomorrow here on the channel. I'll be discussing that in full. I know it's a long video. I'll try to wrap it up. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think about our current political system and how it has completely abandoned Tamara Lich and Chris Barber. Please share this video out. Tag Pierre Poilievre in it. I'm curious what the conservatives are going to say about the way the courts handled peaceful protest in their country for freedom, for democracy. I don't care if it's a crime, if it's an offense. I'm going to tell you guys to continue to hold the line. Pray for Chris. Pray for Tamara. I'm almost on the verge of tears wrapping this video up because they're both my friends. They're dear friends, and I am so sad that the justice system has failed them today. After 2 years of being dragged around and continuing their lockdowns, while the rest of us were able to roam free in the country. If you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Join me tomorrow when we talk about what happened to Tamara and Chris. Turn on your bell for all notifications. Join me live here on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our live streaming show, where I'm joined by my beautiful wife, Mrs. Fringe, as we discuss everything that's happened this week in politics, everything that's coming up in the week ahead. And we hear what you have to say, the greatest YouTube community on this platform. I look forward to hearing what you have to say this Friday night. We will definitely be talking about this. Hopefully, I can be a little less emotional and pull back some of my feelings about this. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, I hope to see you there starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central here on the channel. With that said, there's nothing to enjoy about this video, but I hope you enjoyed the information. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.